Good day everyone, this is Group 6 and our topic is diet and physical activity in the prevention of colorectal cancer. Well, our group consists of me, Dan Xing-Yun, Alisa Kimberly and also Farhah. Well, colorectal cancer is the cancer that starts in colon or rectum. These are the authors of the article, which are Manta Mehta and also Morph Sheikh. Colorectal cancer is one of the most common cancer worldwide, which is second in women and third in men. The genesis of colorectal cancer is multifactorial and complex. They are genetic, familial, dietary, lifestyle, and also environmental factors. While it is obvious that genetic and environmental interactions may ultimately determine how genetic and dietary and also environmental factors affect people. Most food and cancer research have evaluated data without taking into account these relationships, which have only lately become apparent. Despite these challenges, recent evidence suggests that food has a considerable impact on colorectal cancer risk. So let's look at some data and facts here. In terms of dietary pattern, the colorectal cancer incidence has increased gradually in countries where the dietary pattern have become more westernized. In terms of migration studies, the immigrants from low incidence regions who migrate to high incidence developed regions have a higher lifetime risk of colorectal cancer than those who stay in low incidence area. Last but not least, diet versus various cancers. Well, the WRF, WCRF and the American Institute for Cancer Research AICR suggested that changes in diet could significantly reduce the risk of cancer.
So we are going to talk about the prevention of colorectal cancer. So the first method is diet. The first diet mentioned is red meat and processed meat. Initially, the first mechanism proposed that the colorectal cancer or CRC risk is related to animal fat content. However, WHIDMT, which is Women's Health Initiative Dietary Modification Trial, failed to prove that low-fat dietary pattern can reduce CRC. After 6 control studies, the summary relative risk estimate that the animal fat intake in CRC is insignificant. Other mechanism is cooking at high temperature or open flame of bread of processed meat will produce heterocyclic amine and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. The dietary heme iron in red meat is also 10 times fold from the white meat. Hence, iron induces DNA damages, catalyzes peroxidation of fat in food, and also induce colon cytotoxicity. In Danish diet cancer and health cohort studies, the risk for CRC was higher in consumers of lamb, which is red meat. However, in Japanese cohort study, higher consumption of red meat was associated with elevated increase of colon cancer in female but not male. There is also no risk association between meat consumption and renal cancer was found. To summarize, these evidence are still inconclusive, but they suggest positive association between increase of consumption of red and processed meat with CRC. So the next diet is fiber, fruit and vegetables. So the dietary fiber is defined as what is not digested by human enzymes but can be metabolized by our colonic bacteria. So Burkitt's first proposed that the fiber may be protective against CRC. The 4 protective potential mechanisms are dilution of physical carcinogens, reduction in transit time of feces through the bowel, binding of carcinogenic bile acids, and also production of short-chain fatty acid. However, after subsequent epidemiologic and cohort studies, the role of fiber in reducing the risk of CRC is inconsistent. This is because of the dietary fiber vary. For instance, in the Europe cohort studies, cereal is the main source of fiber. However, in North America cohort studies, fruit and vegetables is the main source of fiber. Despite strong data from case control studies, several reviews and meta-analysis of cohort studies have found no significant inverse correlations between fruit and vegetable intake and CRC risk. To summarize, due to the significant methodological challenges in studying the effect of fiber as well as the recent understanding that it may have an impact on health and disease through its effect on the microbiome throughout, investigation is still required. However, increasing fiber consumption from the usual intake to a more ideal amount is still recommended.
The third one is vitamins and minerals. Various minerals and micronutrients have been suggested to be protective against CRC. Calcium can protect the colon mucosa and form insoluble complexes. It reduces proliferation and stimulating differentiation of colon epithelial cells. Higher consumption of dietary and supplemental calcium was associated with a lower risk of CRC. Another study revealed that the effect of calcium persisted for at least 5 years after cessation of treatment. Long-term studies are still needed to confirm and quantify the potential chemopreventive effect and safety of calcium in CRC prevention. Vitamin D has anti-proliferative, pro-differentiating and pro-apoptotic effects in colonocytes, but it is not clear whether the actions of vitamin D require calcium or exerted independently. Women who took a combination of calcium and vitamin D did not have a lower risk for CRC after a mean of 7 years compared with the placebo group. The data thus far do not support a recommendation for the general use of calcium plus vitamin D supplementary for prevention of CRC. Folic acid plays an essential role in DNA synthesis. DNA methylation abnormalities during colorectal carcinogenesis may be affected by a lack of adequate folic acid. A control study of Chinese men with no endoscopic findings of adenomas, participants who took 1 mg per day of folic acid had a lower rate of adenoma or repeat colonoscopy after 3 years compared with the participant giving placebo. Epidemiologic studies have found that folic acid deficiency is highly prevalent in some developing countries where the incidence of CRC is relatively low. Most prospective studies report an inverse association between folic acid intake and CRC risk. High folic acid intake were associated with reduced CRC risk in pooled analysis of 30 studies. On the other hand, other dietary micronutrients are thought to have anti-carcinogenic effect based on their antioxidant properties. However, these studies did not examine specific vitamins but reduce the level of their intake from the diet. Any protective effect may have resulted from other dietary factors present in the vitamin-containing food. There is yet no any randomized trials that support a role for the use of antioxidant for protection against CRC. The next one is dietary pattern. The impact of macronutrients and micronutrients on CRC prevention is as yet inconclusive. Nutrient epidemiologists have examined whether dietary patterns or food combination are associated with CRC risk. There are 2 predominant dietary patterns were observed in 3 large European prospective cohorts, the VEG pattern and the PPP pattern. In Swedish women, the PPP diet conferred an increased risk of colon cancer, while in Finnish men, it conferred an increased risk of rectal cancer. In Japanese prospective cohort, Western dietary pattern positively associated with colon cancer risk in women. A decrease in CRC risk in subjects most adherent to the Mediterranean diet compared with those who were least adherent were found during the Mediterranean diet's relationship to CRC risk in EPIC cohort. The latest evidence has suggested eating a diet high in sugar, saturated fats, and other food that promote inflammation can drive the growth of many cancers. Consuming fewer pro-inflammatory nutrients, more anti-inflammatory plant-based nutrients, and whole grains can reduce risk of gastrointestinal tract cancer death.
And now let's look at the second method, the physical activity. So there are data here. More than 1/3 of US adults, approximately 35.7%, are estimated to be obese. While this relationship between the body weight and certain cancers is now well understood, the RR means content attributed to obesity for colon cancer has been calculated to be 1.24 for men and 1.09 for women, and this may vary depending on the place of origin. While according to a meta-analysis of cohort studies, individuals who were the most physically active had an approximate 23% lower risk of colon cancer than those who were least active. So there are some various anthropometric variables. There are body mass index, BMI, waist circumference, waist or hip ratio are suggested to be positively associated with colon cancer in both men and women. While physical activity may protect against colon cancer through decreasing inflammation, increase the body's metabolic efficiency and capacity, and also reduce the insulin resistance.
In conclusion, there is an abundance of articles and journals about the effect of nutrition, obesity, and physical exercise in reducing the risk of CRC. Dietary patterns that emphasize fiber, fruits, vegetables, and poultry while limiting red and processed meat appear to protect against colorectal cancer and also beneficial to overall health. Although there is an evidence of link between obesity and the risk of colorectal cancer, it is still uncertain whether weight loss can reduce the risk of CRC. Last but not least, physical activity has been linked to lower risks of colorectal cancer, but also it helps to improve cardiovascular health. That's all from us. Thank you.